What's happening, man? Mark Supreme, Rap Politics. We back. Look. My bad. I know it's been a minute. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, there's just a lot of stuff had to be happening. You know what I'm saying? We had the toy drive, we had the Diggum College Fair. Shout out to the Yanni Collective. There was a lot going on, but we finally back with Rap Politics, and we got a dope show for y'all today because it's all about being aware and being in the know about what's going on in civic engagement. And y'all know how I feel about voting. So we're going to get to it. We have the candidate for the 17th Congressional District on hand for today's show. So appreciate y'all tuning in for that. And of course, we got to run through the sponsors. Big, huge shout out to Sherman's, who stay pulling up for Rap Politics, stay putting up for, the Yanni Collective events that are going on around the city. And the news and the information ain't changed, y'all. They still hiring. And they jumping it off at like $17 an hour. I think they gave you a pay bump. Even if you don't work at Sherman's, they gave you a pay bump ahead of time. So if you need a job, you're still looking for a gig, Sherman's is the spot. They are hiring right now. You can go to shermans.com and apply. And you already know the rest, man. And of course, the best water in the area, Illinois American Water Company, doing their thing per usual. I got a little bit earlier, and I took a shower in some early, so you already know what it is. Big shout out to Illinois American Water Company. And so we just going to cut straight to it. It's been a long time coming. It's the 4th month of the year, and we are back with the 3rd season of Rap Politics. And for the first episode of the 3rd season of Rap Politics, we have candidate for the 17th Congressional District of the United States of America. She's from Chicago. She was chief of staff for Representative Charles Jefferson for 3 years. Then was appointed in 2014 to the 67th District of Illinois as a state rep. Ran for lieutenant governor in 2018 alongside Daniel Biss. And a whole bunch of other stuff that she can tell y'all about, man. So Litesa Wallace in the building virtually. Litesa Wallace, was good?
Hey, good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for coming on to Rap Politics for the first episode of the 3rd season. You already know how
so exciting.
You know what I mean?
So the first, yes.
So so I already laid some stuff out ahead of time. You know what I mean? And by the way, the audience that's watching, if y'all got some questions, definitely drop them in the comments. You already know how we do. We're going to get to it. But I just laid some stuff out. I'll let you introduce yourself, though. Who is Litesa Wallace?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I am really a mom. That's like my number one title, number one job, best title I ever had in life is that of mother. And I'm also a candidate for the 17th Congressional District, as you mentioned. I am a therapist, a counselor by trade. Spent many years in school. Actually have a doctorate in educational psychology. My master's is in marriage and family therapy. And I'm just a person who's passionate about helping others. And so a mom, a candidate, a passionate person about helping others.
Got it. So I ran down the list of accomplishments, achievements, and just work in general. Now, you are running for your 3rd office in about 6 years. Why?
Yeah. Wow, when you put that into context. Well,
I was just doing the numbers.
Well, this go round, honestly, I thought after the 2018 gubernatorial cycle, I wouldn't run for office again. The goal there was to make sure that we pushed past, a particular governor who was not great for working class people. And so I ran to try to get to him in that general election. But this go round, when Congresswoman Bustos decided not to seek re-election, some of my former colleagues, or former constituents, I should say, stepped up and started an online petition asking me to please run to represent them in our nation's capital. And I pushed it off for months. And finally, I actually took on the challenge. And I did so because I felt if the people have something that they want me to be able to echo and say for them in our nation's capital, I will work very hard to make sure that I'm there to be able to do that. And so I took on the challenge to go and represent Rockford, Peoria, Galesburg, all of 17. There's so many towns and so many counties in there.
So, and you were in Peoria yesterday, and you mentioned Peoria, and the folks tuned in mostly. You know, we Rockford cool, Quad Cities they cool. Look to you, they cool. We care about the P, right?
Yes.
And you held a press conference here in Peoria downtown yesterday.
Yes.
First, what do you want people to know and understand about your campaign?
Well, people should know that I am a person who has been a working class single head of household. And so I'm going to be the person who is ready and willing to echo the voices of those who are not millionaires and billionaires, even those who are sometimes not thousandaires on a good day. You know, I mean, there are times when I'm not a thousandaire on a good day. So I will be fighting to make sure that we have living wages, access to health care, that we build and expand our economy. So that's what people should know about me. We were at the Labor Temple as I was accepting the endorsement of one of the largest unions in our state, SEIU. So over 170,000 members in SEIU. So I'm really proud to be able to say that I will be able to continue to work with them. We worked closely when I was in the Illinois House, and I'm looking to be able to do that in the U.S. House.
So, given that your territory is so huge, I mean, you know, again, we're not talking about state districts. We're talking about congressional federal districts. How do you make sure that Peoria won't get forgotten and come second or third for your attention while you're serving in D.C., while you still have to deal with Rockford that's asking for the same thing, Quad Cities is asking for the same thing. So how are you able to balance and especially keep Peoria in mind when it comes to fighting for the city out in D.C.?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, and I haven't used the hashtag in a little bit, but one of the biggest hashtags that I've been sharing is Unite the 17th. There are many cities, many towns in this congressional district, but we are one congressional district. And so I see everyone and all parts of the district as extended family, because that's what we are, right? And so we cannot continue to pit ourselves against each other. I've seen that over the years, really much like you just mentioned. Oh, that's Rockford. Oh, that's Peoria. Oh, that's this area. But what I've found is that there are many common core issues that people care about all over the district, all over the state, honestly, all over the nation, right? So I will do my very best to make sure that we're having regular communication with not just grass tops, because this campaign is actually very grassroots, with grassroots and grass tops, and making sure that the policy council that I have envisioned is fully activated, meaning people from every walk, individuals dealing with all kinds of issues, all types of topics that they are experts in, coming together and being part of that. And I want people from all over the 17th to be a part of that policy council. That's how we'll say cousins, brothers, and sisters in this fight to unite the 17th.
And that's a good question. That's a good thought. And I didn't even write this down, but as you mentioned it, you got big cities that obviously Chicago sticks together when it comes to federal funds and just running the city and running the state when it comes to, the machine that is Chicago and politics in Chicago. And I've often heard people in Peoria, in Bloomington, say it'd be cool to figure out a way that we can come together as an area of the state. Peoria regularly going to Champaign regularly coming to over to Galesburg. And you mentioned, Quad Cities and Rockford. How can we make this one family situation?
Well, so I started my earliest years in Chicago, as you mentioned. Then I moved to the south suburbs. We lived in one small suburb, probably to this day, 14,000 people. Many of the surrounding suburbs are around the same. What they did, the mayors and the other elected officials, so I think that's Robin Kelly's congressional district, and a couple of other congressional members may overlap, but they created a Southland United organization where the elected officials from all of those very small, very, very small suburban areas came together to have a more collective voice, a larger voice. That's what you were just talking about. That's what I want to do with the policy council. I also want to continue some of the things when I was a state legislator. I had advisory committees and had people from key positions throughout the district on that advisory committee. So if I was talking about education, we have principals, teachers, family, students to advise and have conversation and input around the things that I would advocate for education, as an example. So I think having those smaller collective voices coming together is how you make a much louder and more roarous impact on what public policy will look like.
I want to ask you this question. This is a super quick question for the people watching. You running for 17th congressional district. You talked about a couple things that are at the forefront of your campaign and your pillars. What would you say in 3 words or less is your main focus in this campaign for Congress? What's your main focus?
3 words or less. Okay, it's 4 words. Letting Illinois families thrive.
You said what?
Letting Illinois families thrive. That's the biggest thing that I want to see happen. When families thrive, communities thrive, economies thrive.
Got it. Okay.
And vice versa. When economies, communities thrive, then families can thrive.
So your work is done in DC, but of course it's about bringing resources back to your district. You're running for an office that is being vacated by Cheri Bustos. Cheri recently was listed as the #1 House Democrat for bringing federal funds back to her district. He's also helped secure $1 million from Peoria to tear down Harrison School, which has been something that people have been trying to get torn down for years. So the $1 million with just that, how do you plan to back that up and fill those shoes or create your own lane as you follow behind the person that's listed as #1 for bringing resources and money back to her district?
I think the biggest thing is being able to work well with others, being able to seek counsel from those who came before you. So I would certainly be, having as much conversation with Congresswoman Bustos as she will be wanting to have. She and I are no strangers to interacting and working with each other. Again, I was a state legislator in the district that she has represented in our nation's capital. And so I would be open to all advice. And then I think the other thing is you do have to try to find ways to blaze your own trail and be able to listen to what your constituents want and be able to then go and fight and advocate for those things. That is how she's been successful. And that's something that as I watch her from afar and sometimes near, it's something that I'm inspired to be able to do. And I will continue to learn from her and many others who are in the U.S. House with seniority and with major advice to give on how to make sure your district gets prioritized as budget conversations occur and as some of the earmarks, if you will, occur in our U.S. budget.
When it comes to the state of Illinois, we're bleeding when it comes to population. And one of the biggest concerns, especially in the central Illinois area, is to not only retain, but recruit. What do you see as being a strong point for you being in Congress? How can you help stop the bleeding? And how can you also begin to recruit people to specifically the central Illinois area? Well,
I know what I saw during my time in the Illinois House, and that was when the major exodus was occurring under the last gubernatorial administration, resulting in us losing a congressional seat, by the way. What I saw was that people want as much for their businesses and economy to thrive. They also want human and social services to be available, accessible, and something that they can use to be able to take care of their families. I remember talking to an individual who suffered from an individual who had many disabilities, and he had decided that he was going to leave our state because he thought and found it to be easier to access certain services in another state. So we've got to make sure that as we talk about building back our economy, recovering from COVID, that we don't neglect the human services and the human infrastructure that has to occur to be able to build back our state and our nation much stronger and better.
All right, I'm going to come back to Peoria because, I'm biased. One of the biggest conversations we've been having in the city is Amtrak, figuring out how to get it here. And if we do get it here, how's it going to work and things like that. What are your thoughts on Amtrak coming to Peoria and being like connected to Bloomington for those reasons. And based on your answer for that, how can you, as a congresswoman, help secure funds to carry this project along?
Well, mass transit and connectivity of passenger rail is an issue. I know you don't want to hear this, but it's an issue throughout this entire congressional district. Rockford is having a similar struggle with how do we make sure that people are connected and have access to passenger rail, and if not passenger rail, maybe even commuter rail, which is a step further, right? I do think that nationally, federally, we have to take that type of transportation investment very seriously. I've looked at old maps of what China and parts of Europe looked like just 10 or 15 years ago, and the lack of rail infrastructure in some areas. And now it is completely proliferated. And it's because they prioritize making that form of transportation part of what they would put money behind. So, we've got to prioritize it, fund it, and that is how things happen. But budgets are really lists of priorities. And so if people are not prioritizing that form of transportation, it's not getting funded, and then we're not seeing it proliferate. And that's here in the 17th, it's in Peoria, it's in Rockford, it's really all over the US, because we've not done quite as much, nowhere near as much as what Europe and Asia has done in terms of connecting rail and cities across their footprint. We're not doing it here. I would prioritize that.
Well, how do we get people on board? No pun intended, but how do we get people on board for mass transit? And what skill set would you say that you can lean on when it comes to getting buy-in? Because, obviously you're running for Congress, but you're not even a president, and the president is not even a king. It's not just, we're just going to do this. We need buy-in. So what skill set do you think like you can lean on when it comes to getting people to actually buy in collectively around the region, around the state, and in DC to say, okay, we need to make getting rail or getting mass transit in your district a priority?
Well, I would say one of the biggest skills that I have is my ability to listen and negotiate. During my time, I'm at a meet and greet, so sorry. During my time in the Illinois General Assembly, when we had some really contentious debates, I was able to get over 40 pieces of legislation to our Republican governor's desk, and those pieces were signed. And it was because I didn't close the door on being able to talk with his staff or being able to talk with members on the other side of the aisle. That is a skill set that I have, not just with colleagues, so legislative colleagues of the future, but within communities, being able to come to Rockford and hang out and hear and learn what people want me to be able to do, and then being able to translate that and echo that to my future federal colleagues and talk about what are some of the things that we have in common. Usually that's the way you get things done. Even colleagues who sit on the other side of the aisle, if you can find one or two things that your constituents want, that theirs want as well, you've opened up a whole nother world in terms of being able to negotiate and work well together to accomplish things. But it will start with me listening to those residents of Peoria and other parts of the district who want transit and bringing that message to DC.
And we know you got to run. We're going to cut to the lightning round here in just a second. But I want to speak for the folks that, went to school, maybe graduated, might have didn't. What you finna do about these student loans, man? What you gonna do? What y'all plan on doing?
You know what? Well, we definitely need to probably continue some of the things that are happening. So I know that what I've heard often is exactly that, what's going to happen with the student loans. But let's put some things into context. And I know it's because of a devastating pandemic, but for the entire time that Biden has been in office, we haven't made student loan payments. There's been, a stay on those payments for quite some time. I think that we need to continue to find other solutions for making sure that when those moratoriums are listed, people are not, shell-shocked with, huge amounts of payments. I am a proponent of making sure that we suspend or cap the interest that comes with student loans, so people actually are paying on the principal and actually see the amount go down. Because right now, I know if you're paying back your student loans, as you kind of mentioned or alluded to, you're not seeing movement, right? You're seeing, you're making payment after payment and you're not seeing the balance go any lower. We've got to do something about the interest. And then we've got to make sure that college is affordable in the first place, right? There are plans for affordable community college. I would say that we have to bring parity to our four-year institutions so that they don't wither. If people are deciding to go to community college over a four-year school, one way of doing that is to make sure that the first 60 hours is free, no matter what institution a student goes to. That will help to bring down some of the student loan debt, and eventually we'll get to the place. One last thing is, I know I'm going on and on because I love talking about education, but eventually we'll get to the place like we did in the 19th century. We realized that secondary education was important, and we created a system of, for granted, known as high school. And it's free and public for all. We will have to get there where higher education is concerned, because that is the direction in which our nation and the globe is moving. We're gonna always have to have more skill past high school. So why don't we take on the challenge that our forefathers and mothers took on in the late 19th century?
Two more federal questions before we head to the lightning round. Thoughts on cannabis from a federal standpoint?
We've got to have federal legalization, and we need to work on the State Banks Act, and we need to have an opportunity for the dollars that are generated for cannabis to be placed in banks so that it's not a cash economy.
Can we get Black people and people of color in general in being able to have access and equity when it comes to cannabis legislation?
Well, right now it's state by state, right? So we're seeing that, you have a hodgepodge, really kind of a quilt of public policy around what cannabis legislation looks like. I think that we do need federal legislation, and that federal legalization and legislation needs to come with federal pardons and commutations of sentences so that there is the criminal justice aspect of it. People shouldn't be able to profit billions and billions a year from an industry that has resulted in mass incarceration, and not have those individuals who've suffered under mass incarceration have their sentences commuted, or individuals have things sponged and sealed. I think it should be automatic. That's one step. The other step would be to make sure that we're intentional about how licensure occurs, which communities those licensures occur in, and not set up programs that in effect become kind of sharecropping programs where people take out large loans to be able to enter into the process, but may or may not ever be able to fully repay those loans for a very long time until their business becomes profitable in the cannabis space. So we've got to prioritize equity in a way that does not strap those new business owners with debt, much like we just talked about around student loans.
Gotcha. Okay. You don't smoke, do you? Next interview. We vaccination and masking.
So.
You said what?
I said I don't though. Although I brought on legalization.
I know. Vaccination and masking. Hopefully, we're on the tail end of COVID-19 and the pandemic. But any thoughts on what needs to be happening from a federal standpoint at this point, or are we fine and we just see what happens?
Wow. I mean, we've seen the courts make any number of contradictory decisions here in and here out. I am not sure at this point, and I don't believe that we're on. Some numbers have declined, but I've just spent some time in a couple of cities where the numbers are really high, and just learned that our vice president has tested positive for COVID. So I think that common sense mask measures were making a huge difference. I do understand that we are the land of the free and home of the brave, and people want to make their own decisions around their vaccines. I do caution, though, that while I do support people making sure that they have control over their own bodies and their own health care for any number of reasons, public health issues are just that. They're not personal, they're public. And so we've got to find ways that we're not putting our neighbors at risk because we've decided that wearing a mask or not wearing a mask and getting vaccinated or not being vaccinated is something that we want to personally do. We've got to put the greater good of us all before ourselves individually.
So is it too early to take the mask off, say in the airplane right now, or what do you think?
Oh, I wear mine in the airplane. If I'm in an airplane or in any close confined space, I wear mine. But that's for me. I mean, I'm vaccinated, but I just believe that I want to be as safe as possible. My mother is, well over 60, and I just want to make sure that if I'm interacting with her, I'm not bringing something home to her. My son is in schools all day. He tries to be careful with masks so he doesn't bring anything home to me and vice versa. I think it's all about looking out for each other and taking care of each other.
So do you think that masking in places like airplanes and trains, do you think that needs federal support, or is it not that serious, but do you think it's needed?
I think that there should be guidelines. I think we should be following the science. The CDC continues to put out guidelines based upon where we are with the numbers and what's happening in terms of spread or mutation of the virus. I think we should follow the scientists. I'm not, I'm a social scientist, but I'm certainly not a medical doctor or an epidemiologist. And so I think that we need to be listening to them.
Okay, we're going to head to the lightning round. The lightning round, I don't know if you've seen any of these interviews. The lightning round is where you get rapid fire questions. You get rapid fire questions, and you just first answer that comes to your mind. You got a minute, and we're going to get through as many questions as we can in a minute's time. Some lightweight, light questions. All right.
Okay.
You ready?
I didn't hear you. I'm ready. I'm trying to make sure. Okay, I'm ready.
All right, boom. What entrepreneur or business person do you admire the most?
What's the dude from Shark Tank? Fubu.
I can't even think of his name, but I know who you're talking about. I'll let you go.
In the back of your car, making millions. That's awesome.
Got you. $500,000 or dinner with Jay-Z?
$500,000.
Is Lil Wayne in your top 5 or not?
Lil Wayne? Hell yeah.
Hey, we can go with it. Cat Williams or Kevin Hart?
Cat Williams.
Drums or flats if you're eating chicken?
The drums. I like the drums.
Who's your biggest inspiration?
I gotta say it's my mom. I've never seen anybody work harder than her.
Favorite movie?
The Color Purple.
Did Chris Rock deserve to get slapped?
No, no one deserves physical violence.
Do you recycle?
Yes.
And last question, despite this, this is a serious question. Can you commit to me and everybody watching right now that you're going to figure out a way to let us vote online?
Yes, we got to get there. I'm ready to get there.
That's what it is. Okay.
I actually just had that conversation. Cybersecurity, who's running for Secretary of State in Georgia. So there's ways to do it. We got to get there.
Let's get there. Litesa Wallace, 17th District candidate for Congress. Appreciate you coming on the first episode in the 3rd season. We're going to be looking at you. We're going to be watching.
All right. I'm going to say thank you for allowing me to join you during my meet and greet, and after being on the road all day. I don't always look like this, but I hope everyone tunes into the forum that will be happening tomorrow for the State Central Committee of the 17th District. All of the candidates will be there. And then next week, we'll be back. I'll be in Bradley. I'll be back next week. So
we're gonna be there.
I'm looking forward to it all.
We're going to be there. Thank you for coming on RapPolitics. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.